Hey, everybody. All right. So last time we talked about biotic versus abiotic. That's the general categories that ecologists put all of ecology into. It's either living or it's non-living. But that isn't where they stop when it comes to categorizing things. And we're going to talk about a whole lot of vocabulary today that's about the way that ecologists organize their thinking about the things in the ecosystem or in the environment that is living and non-living. So I want to use for today an example. I want you to imagine the job of a very typical ecologist, somebody who works for the Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC of New York State. And one of the jobs they have to do is they have to decide how many hunting permits that will be given out and how many deer can be taken out in any particular year. Now, as it happens, the white-tailed deer population of New York State is out of control. There are way too many white-tailed deer. Now, there's a reason for that. We humans have removed the things that ate them. There were a lot of wolves and coyotes that preyed upon deer and kept their population limited. And we took those out because they were competing with us for our cows and other farm animals. And so we have removed the deer's predators. So these deer don't have anybody eating them, or not very many. And so their population's gotten out of control. And that's a problem for us because there's car accidents, but it's also a problem for the deer because there's a lot of deer and there isn't necessarily enough food for them. And in particularly bad years, many of them will starve to death, a very slow, painful death. And so we've decided as a society that it is acceptable to permit a certain number of deer to be hunted and killed to keep their population at normal natural limits. Now, how many permits to give out is a big question. Do we just let everybody shoot and as many deer as they want? Well, no, because then we're going to have the same problem with deer that we had with coyotes and wolves, and we're going to have them go extinct in the area. So that's no good. So we have to figure out how many permits to give. So let's say this is the job of the ecologist. They're going to try and figure out how many permits to give. Well, the first thing they're going to want to know is how many deer there are in New York State. You can't figure out how many to take out until you know how many there are. If you're having a big year, a banner year, and there's a lot of deer, you're going to give out more permits. So they're going to look at all of the white-tailed deer in New York State. That's the deer population. A population is all the members of one species in a given area. So all the white-tailed deer of Orange County or all the white-tailed deer of New York State. That's the white-tailed deer population that this ecologist is going to study. Now, how they're going to figure out how many there are, they're probably never going to figure out the exact number, but what they'll do is they'll survey a particular area, tag them as they count them, and then multiply by the number of acres that are like those that would have deer and figure out an estimate of how many deer there are in that given area, whether it's Orange County or New York State. Okay, so they'll sample a little area and then assume that the rest of the area is like that and multiply. Okay, so that's the population of deer. Now, if you're giving out permits and let's say you've figured out roughly how many deer live in New York State, is that all you need to know to figure out how many permits to give out? Well, no. You're also going to want to know, are there, any coyotes left? Because if the coyotes are going to eat them and we take a whole lot, then we may drive their population too low. So we want to know if there are any coyotes around, right? We're also going to want to know how much of the food is around that they eat, how many of the plants are growing that they eat. Maybe it's been a really cold winter and there's not a lot of fruits and berries around or seeds or grass for them to eat. So we're going to want to know about all of the plant organisms that they feed on. And we're going to want to know about the bunny rabbits that are also eating those plants, because if there's a whole lot of bunny rabbits, there won't be as much food for the deer, right? And that'll bring their numbers down. So we want to know about all the other living things that are interacting with the environment, with the deer. And that's called the community. All the populations of a given area is called the community. And so we're going to be looking at not just the deer. We're also going to add in the rabbits. We're going to add in any coyotes that are eating deer. We're going to look at how many, turtles there are, and how many hawks there are. Are the hawks eating the rabbits? Because if there's a lot of hawks, then the number of rabbits will go down, and then they won't be eating as much food that the deer needs, right? So these all interact with each other. So the ecologist is going to look at all of the living things, the community in the deer, around the deer. So the deer's community. But that's not all that's going to affect the deer. What if it's going to be a really cold, desperate winter? All of the meteorologists, the people who study the weather, are predicting that it's going to be a terrible winter. And that's going to kill a lot of deer. Well, that will affect the population, right? But what do we know about the weather that makes it different from the community, the rabbits and the coyotes and the grass and the berries, right? That's all living stuff, biotic factors. But we also want to know about the climate and the weather, and how much water is available and whether the water's been poisoned or polluted, right? We're going to want to know if there's enough space or if people have built houses, right? And so we're also going to be interested in the non-living portion of the environment of the deer. So the abiotic factors. So we're going to biotic and abiotic factors together. When you have both of those, you're looking at an ecosystem. Okay, so population, all the white-tailed deer in New York. Community, all the white-tailed deer, all the raccoons, all the bunnies, all the plants, all the coyotes, all the wolves, all the living things, all the separate populations all together is a community. When you add in the air and the sun and the water and the temperature and the pH and the pollutants and all that stuff, you have an ecosystem. Okay. All right. So those are the basic three that you need to know about a particular area. There's some other vocabulary that ecologists use as well. All the area on the planet that has life, anywhere on the planet that has life, is called the biosphere. It's pretty much everywhere, because there's life pretty much everywhere. There's life in the atmosphere. There's life underground. There's life underwater. You have to get pretty down deep for there to be no life. And so the biosphere is all the parts of Earth that contain life. Certain stretches of the Earth have a very similar kind of life. If you go to Canada, it has evergreen trees and moose and just basically a certain kind of life across a large area. And then if you go to Europe, in the northern part of Europe and Siberia, right, you have the same kind of life where you have evergreens and like moose-like organisms. And so those are called biomes, a large portion. You might go to the Southwest and it's all desert, and you're going to have cactuses and you're going to have reptiles, right? So that's a different biome. So a biome is a large area of the Earth associated with a particular type of life. And that can be either aquatic or terrestrial. Aquatic means water, like an aquarium. An aquarium has water in it. A terrarium is something that you keep snakes in or lizards, right? An aquarium is something you keep fish in. Aqua means water. Terra means land. So typical aquatic biomes would be marshes, oceans, swamps, lakes. And terrestrial would be like the rainforest, or that's called taiga. That's the evergreens of Canada, the grasslands, right, or the desert or the tundra. Those are all different biomes. And finally, more vocabulary words to stick in here real quick. If you have a particular job, it's called your niche. So we are we eat both animals and plants. We're omnivores. That's our niche. And plants their niche is photosynthesis and to produce glucose. So there's different jobs and roles that we each fill in our ecosystem. And that is a little bit different than something called habitat, which is where we live. So we all live in something called the deciduous forest, just trees that lose their leaves in the winter. That's our habitat. Our habitat is actually city and suburbs, but in our general area, most of the organisms around us live in a habitat of deciduous forest. So a good way to think about that, I like this image, is that an organism's habitat is its address and its niche is its occupation. So all these birds have the same habitat. They live at the beach. But this flamingo eats by straining mud through their bills, while the duck dabs up down to get the plants. And avocets feed on insects, right? Oyster catchers pry open shells, and plovers hunt for small insects. They're not eating the same stuff. They each fill a different niche. They have a different role in this ecosystem, but they are all at the same habitat, the beach. And that is a rundown of all the vocabulary of organization that you need to know for ecology.